Sister Joan entered Maryknoll in 1950 and arrived in Hawaii in 1956. For 36 years, she taught in Catholic schools in Hawaii. Sister Joan was named among the living treasures of Hawaii for her many years of education, community service, and advocacy in Hawaii. Thank you for the backup there. Sister Joan seeks to foster understanding between faiths to promote an all-inclusive love and compassion for all humankind. Please join me in extending a warm welcome and aloha to Sister Joan Chatfield.
Thank you. I'm appreciating that extra little help up a step that doesn't have a handle. So I got two handles this time. It was very good. Also, I've noticed, this is my third time here this morning, and I've noticed that we've given wonderful applause to Ralph and Don and to our guest speaker. But I think we all need to give a wonderful round of applause for Althea, who is doing the sound behind, and for our men of the strings and the rhythm. Look at that. Nice long applause. And there's a new tambourine man that I just saw over there, so he should get a little something. Seriously, this is such a gift that people endowed with musical talent from their creator are able to share it with those of us that don't have quite their gift, and they make it so nice for us. So that's a particular thing, but it's an unusual gift to be able to play behind the scenes, like when the message of prayer was being given in the beginning, that gentle little music behind. I mean, it's like whispering angels, and so thank you. Well, I used to say a long time ago, our God is a sucker for gratitude. No matter what happens, thank you. No matter what he wants, yes. I mean, it seems to be the key to the realm of the kingdom, that whatever God sends us is what God sends us, not what we want or what we got ourselves into. Or look at how many times do parents say to kids, now you see, you got into that trouble because, no. We have to understand this great mystery of who we are, living beings in this world, created with the eternal living being in heaven. And whatever language we use, whatever tradition we grew up in, whatever gift brings us to being here today, we are related by virtue of the one creator. And I love the people who says, oh, no, it was real Big Bang, and real blah, blah, blah. I say, okay, you do some more for me then. Challenge anybody who says that to you, because I love the ones who don't believe in God because they just haven't gotten awake yet. That's the only problem. They'll rise up to it. Yeah. And I also love the people who love those people, because a lot of times it's within a great marriage that someone who has a gift of faith, who is married to a person who doesn't have the gift. Okay, it's a gift. Remember, none of us came out of the womb saying, I will only be born if I can become a member of the church that I choose. No. It doesn't work that way. This is a gift. It's a gift to be in a believing community. And it's a gift that you sometimes share with others. And as I said, if there is a person who is in a strong, committed relationship with a person who does not have that gift yet, let me tell you, as somebody who spends a significant amount of time with people who are at the end of their life, it's absolutely amazing the testimony that those people give to the God they kept saying never was around. And you only hear it sometimes at the very, very end of their life. I was with a gentleman the other day who I taught 3 of his children all of whom said, "Oh, my mom's a Catholic, but my dad doesn't go to church." So I didn't know what that meant until I met the dad. And then after I talked to him for a while, I knew perfectly well what it meant. He had been hurt by a church when he was young, and he would never go back into a place like that. Well, he didn't. But in the last 24 hours of his life, he gave the most magnificent tribute to his wife's kindness, to her caring, to her love. And I'm sure she bit her tongue 20,000 times a day if I listened to it just for 24 hours. And, it just goes to show you that God does not overlook what we do for one another. So that's a little preliminary. Now we will begin the sermon. That was just a preliminary because of that. And the same with the song that was just sung. It is a very interesting connection that we have with the world beyond, where we're all going, of course. Of course. Now, why is the title of today's sermon, today's homily, today's sharing, today's whatever you want to call it, why is that saying, follow your star? All right, let me tell you. This is a recent piece of knowledge from the scientific community, and it comes out of 3 astronomical centers, one at Harvard, one at London, University of London, and one in Cape Town. These are 3 centers that study the universe, and it has now been documented that the Star of Bethlehem is still in the sky, in the universe. Now, it's not over Bethlehem because, they all move, right? I mean, they move in what looks like an ellipse or a circle, whatever. But in that movement, they go this way. So sometimes you think they're coming, sometimes you think they're going, but that's only because you're standing here. If you were standing over here, you'd think they were coming and going that way. It doesn't make any difference. They're moving consistently, all right? And these 3 astronomical centers have discovered that some stars seem to be permanent. Now, some seem to have a lifetime and then go off into their end time. But it seems now that they have documented that the Christmas star is still going. Now, that's a kind of an abstruse piece of information, except think back to the fact that the birth of Christ, which not only was documented by people who wrote about and told the story later, all the Gospels were written quite a bit after Christ was on the earth, but that documentation was predicted. This is the only religion in the world that was predicted. Nobody predicted Shakyamuni Buddha was going to be the Buddha. Nobody predicted Muhammad was going to do this. I mean, it was not that they didn't do it. They did a wonderful job. But the prediction is very interesting. That centuries before Jesus was born, it was said, there will be a virgin who will conceive a child. There will be the prophets who said, he's coming. He's coming. And think of all the little children who say, when's he coming? When's he coming? When is he coming? Now, every year we celebrate that coming on Christmas. But the marvel of it is that it was then predicted that these 3 kings, and we celebrate that January 6th or early in January, that the 3 kings followed the star and ended up finding Bethlehem. That star could have been that kind of a star anywhere else, and they would have gone there, and then we would be singing "O Little Town of Aleppo." Seriously, stop and think of it. I mean, Bethlehem was an accident in a sense, but it was connected to that prophetic voice that said ahead of time, this is coming. So, to get back to the astronomers, they are now saying, with all the counting that they're able to do, that there are more stars than all of the people who have been, which have been counted, and all of us who have been counted, and all of the people who are going to be coming whom they haven't counted, that there's still more stars than all of those numbers. I don't know what the numbers are. You don't need to know the numbers. You just need to know that there are so many pieces of light and movement in the universe. Which brings me to think that we don't have to follow anybody else's star. And I do think that unity as a standard official worshiping body in the human community has recognized that maybe better than a lot of others. A lot of others maybe say, you can follow the star of this church, but you got to do these things. The Unity has a marvelous inclusion that allows people, particularly people who have been in other traditions, to come and be affirmed here. It doesn't say, well, you'll only be affirmed if. No, the affirmation comes from the unity principle. And I believe that you people have it, and sometimes you don't realize what a gift that is to our community. And as Fred told me at breakfast today, my breakfast looked like lunch, but that's okay. I don't usually do salad for breakfast, but it was so delicious I didn't care. The idea is that this church in their pulpit will have a Catholic nun, an Episcopal priest, a Jewish rabbi, a Muslim imam. The other churches don't have that. So I just want to thank you for your commitment to openness and also your commitment to respect and honor that you're giving each other. It comes in your music and it comes in your messages. Maybe if we all knew how to applaud for ourselves, that we go back to one of the services. She said, "All right, now hug the other side because they don't want to feel left out." So you didn't say that second time. I noticed. Anyway. All right, now, what would this really mean to follow your star? Today is a day that this community is recognizing and honoring volunteers. Part of each service to recognize the end of volunteers. Then you stop and think, well, what does that mean? Well, that means that some kind of an itch you scratch. You're asked to do something and you say yes. Or you're asked to do something and you say, no, I really can't do that now. Okay. But you have given of your time, your talent, or your treasure to doing something for the whole of community. And this is really what the extension of the Creator is. I always think it's significant that the scriptures in the Christian tradition say, God so loved the world that he sent his son. God didn't so love the Catholics. God didn't so love the Episcopalians. God didn't so love the evangelicals. Sometimes they think he only loves them, but we overlook that. We don't push that. However, if you do the kind of work that I do, I'm what they call a professional ecumenist or a professional interreligionist. I'm hardly ever in a room with all Catholics, even if they're nuns. I'm hardly ever in the room like that. So as a result, I say, God so loved the world. And yet we do have some people who don't understand that. So we have to help them, just along the way. It's all a part of that process. It's all a part of the process of building respect for one another. So then you have to recognize that if you volunteer for something and it isn't working, and you don't particularly like that committee, well, for God's sakes, get off it. Go to another committee. Don't just sit there and bellyache. That's not worth it. It wastes time, it wastes treasure, and maybe it upsets the person that you're being upset by. Maybe not, but maybe it does. And that's important that you get to the goodness of fit. I've often mentioned, because I think it's such a nice theory, Plato, good, nice pagan philosopher Plato out of Greece. He said, goodness of fit is essential for the human community. Goodness of fit is essential for, he really meant the word mental health. He didn't say it because that wasn't in the vocabulary of the times. But what he really meant was, if it fits right, if it's good for you and you're using it for the good of humanity, that's what it's supposed to be. And he uses the examples of when you go for an interview, you don't go in slacks and a sweatshirt. If you want to get the job, you dress for the job. Goodness of fit. You have to be in the right place at the right time to say the right things and hopefully get the job. Well, you also have to do that in terms of our holiness and our spirituality. You have to be in tune with what that truth is for you. And for some people, it'll be committee work. For other people, it'll be telephone work. For other people, it'll be work at home. And for some people, it'll just be sitting there praying for the people that can do it. I live with a 93-year-old married old sister who prays every day, I think more than I pray in a whole week. I mean, anytime I go past her room, she's saying the rosary, or she's reading her office book, or she's reading the scripture, because that's what she's doing now at age 93. Before that, she was working in the community like I am now. So, but on the other hand, when the phone rings, she's right there. She never says, well, you can't talk to me now because I'm saying my prayers. No. She stops the prayers and talks to the person, and I can hear by the tone of her voice how caring and marvelous she is. In fact, after the previous service, the mother of one of Sister Rosario's good friends came up, and she said, I'm Karen Kung's mother. It was so cute. I mean, she knows of this Maryknoll sister because her daughter was taught by her, and because Sister has been kind and caring for the daughter. You see the connections. So we really are, and you are in particular, a community of connections. So when you stop and think that you have your own star, it's not anybody else's, it's yours. It's what got you here today, although you probably knew the way. But that's a mystery. And there are people in the world has never crossed their mind that they should get nourishment or get pressure from that, you know. I had an experience last year, in 2015, of going to Turkey as a gift from the Pacifica Institute. And if you don't know, the Pacifica Institute it has nothing to do with the Pacific Ocean, so don't go there. It has to do with peace, and it has to do with peace through religion, and it has to do with peace that people want who can't practice their religion where they live. Okay? And it was started by a very amazing man who currently lives in Pennsylvania, although he was exiled from Turkey and had 2 or 3 attempts on his life, plus the fact that he's got a bad heart, and I think he has diabetes, I'm not sure. But anyway, he's a man who is definitely dedicated to peace, and who's not the kind of person that goes around saying, I founded this, I founded that. He doesn't put his name on everything. In fact, I didn't know until a few days into the trip that we were on as guests that his name was Gulen. Now, I can't say his first name, it's very long, but his last name is Gulen. And guess when his name came up in history and television was in this last outbreak before the tragedies in Istanbul. This came up because the effort to speak against the president who had stopped religious freedom, even though he is a Muslim, he said, oh, you people are just following Gulen. And look, he isn't even here, and he's just, agitating you and so forth. In reality, I think Dr. Gulen is quite a remarkable human being. I would love to meet him. It's kind of like the Martin Luther King type person for this group of people. But as a result, you get to meet people whose motivation is what our motivation is, that there must be peace on earth. And like the song says, thank you, gentlemen, it has to be worked at. It doesn't happen by just saying, oh, wouldn't it be lovely if there was peace? No, there's got to be peace by working at it. And we all don't work at it the same way, but we need to respect the need for it, and we need to give our energies to it as much as we can. So in a sense, following our star is so that we do whatever it is that the Creator gives us that, as I say, that itch to scratch. You know, I don't know why I have volunteered for the things I've volunteered for. Sometimes it's the person who asks me. I like them, they like me, so I do it. Sometimes it's a need in the community. Sometimes it's nobody else is doing it, so I volunteer. There are as many reasons for why you volunteer into something. You know those reasons. But as long as it's sincere and as long as it helps, and as I say, as long as the conditions are good for you, this is what it means to follow our star. So when you stop and think that you get a message or a kind of an invitation to kind of look at what you're doing in your life on this score, and then on the busiest week one of the busiest weeks of the year, between the last Sunday before Christmas and the Sunday which is Christmas, it's a good idea to maybe take a little time, go for a walk, and say, what am I doing? And How can I be a better member of the unity community? What can I do to make it even smoother than I feel it's now, or to make it smoother because it isn't smooth now? It doesn't make any difference. As many people as there are in this room, in this temple, in this sacred place, as many people as you are, everybody would have a different description. But that's not unusual. The rest of us are all different. I mean, we're tall, short, wide, skinny, in red, not in red, with shoes, without shoes. I mean, look at the varieties. Look at the varieties. Our Creator, our God loves gratitude. Our God loves variety. So don't try to be like anybody else. I got a little spooked. This was maybe a week, maybe 2 months ago. I happened to go through our living room from the room behind, and the television was on. And I heard the sound on the television, and I thought in my head, oh, that sounds like my mother. And I looked at it, and it was me. Now that is spooky. That is really spooky. But you know how people look alike, and you know how people in a family sound alike. Well, in one sense, you say, oh, what an honor. Your mother was on the stage for 11 years before she married your father, and da-da-da-da. No, it was like I wanted to be me all my young life. And so to sound like her at that moment when I first said, wait a minute, I had to stop and unpack that and make sure that the genetic pool that I came out of and the DNA that I haven't yet spent the $100 to find out, because I pretty much know what it is. I don't need Ancestry.com to tell me who's up there into which their DNA came down into me. But I do know that I came from a family of faith, and that's been a big help for me. But it's also been a way that I've been able to comfort people for whom the struggle for faith has been a problem. Maybe it's been a problem because of the people they ran up against in whatever church they were in. And then I think, man, go on over to Unity and you'll be accepted. And I appreciate the applause, because I do not say that as a smart aleck statement. I say that from the bottom of my heart, that you don't work on hurting people. So be sure you keep that reputation now, because and when you're in transition, it's always a little problem. Yeah, should have done this, should have done that. No, you don't have to judge anybody. What happened. What, those of us that have been around know a lot of you from before, but we also know that God loves you. So with that acknowledgement, why don't you be sure to take your personality, your gifts, your love of others into the marketplace and do the best things that you can for God. And then next week, when you come here at Christmas, when they say, think of, world of peace and so forth, you will have made your contribution. And sometimes you have to act ahead of time. Sometimes you have to act at the moment. Sometimes you have to act after the crisis happened and you go in on it. It doesn't make any difference. Just be sure that your heart is in rhythm with the unity message and that you're following your star, and then you got it made. And here's an example. Our two musicians have gone to the back because they're going to walk up the aisle on the next song. I know that, and it's lovely. Thank you.